Matthew 27, verse 1. Now, when the morning was come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. And when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, What is that to us? See thou to it. See thou to that. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple and departed, and went and hanged himself. And the chief priests took the silver pieces and said, It is not lawful for to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. And they took counsel and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Wherefore the field was called the field of blood unto this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they, the children of Israel, did value, and gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord appointed me. And Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, Art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus answered unto him, Thou sayest. And when he was accused of the chief priests and the elders, he answered nothing. Then said Pilate unto him, Hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? And he answered him to never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. Now at that feast the governor was wont to release unto the people a prisoner whom they would. And they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, Whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas, or Jesus, which is called Christ? Did I say Barnabas before? No? Okay, good. Verse number 18. For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife said unto him, saying, Have thou nothing to do with that just man? For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said unto them, Whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? They said, Barabbas. Pilate saith unto them, What shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They all say unto him, Let him be crucified. And the governor said, Why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out the more, saying, Let him be crucified. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but that rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person, see ye to it. Then answered all the people, and said, His blood be on us and on our children. Then released he Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. We'll stop there. I want to teach tonight about the complications that come from compromise. Or I should say the complications of compromise. Really, it's about compromising. The Bible tells us in Proverbs, it says it in Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, that we're not supposed to pervert judgment. The Bible tells us we're supposed to walk with equity. We're supposed to walk honestly and not circumspectly, not as fools, redeeming the time because the days are evil. The Bible tells us that those in authority were not to receive gifts because it would pervert their judgment. They're not supposed to have strong drink because it perverted their judgment. They're not supposed to let anything in their life hinder them from using proper judgment. We understand that Pilate was obviously part of, he was an evil ruler, but he had given some things to compromise, and he was not a strong ruler in that he compromised on the sake of the people. Sometimes it's okay to compromise. It's okay to compromise in a lot of ways. Husbands and wives, it's okay to compromise. My wife wants one thing, I want to do another thing. It's okay to compromise. You're not giving in. You're not somehow giving the wife the head of the house. You're not giving them the rule and reign of the finances and rules. If you let the wife have what she wants. If the wife decides you're going out to a restaurant, you're trying to figure out what you want to do, and you say you have it in your heart that I really want to have something like a steak. I want to have a good old-fashioned steak, so I'm going to go to Roadhouse, or I'm going to go to Outback, or I'm going to go to Longhorns, or wherever. And then the wife says, you know what? No, I want to have something like Italian. So you wind up going to like Olive Garden. Doesn't mean you're less of a man by compromising, right? And I'm saying this kind of hoping everybody understands that, But I'm thinking that sometimes we don't understand that. But it's okay to compromise on some things. It's never okay to compromise on major doctrine. It's never wrong to compromise. Let me put it this way. It's okay to compromise in principle. In principle, it's okay to compromise. It's okay to sit back and, you know what, well, it's better if we do it this way, but you know what, I realize that they're not in the same place where I'm at spiritually. They're not in the same place where I'm at in my walk with God, or maybe in my thought patterns, and maybe they're just not seeing it best yet, and maybe taking a step sideways is better than taking 2 steps forward. Doesn't mean that I'm not going forward. Doesn't mean that I've lost my convictions. It doesn't mean that I'm giving up on God or I'm changing my doctrine, but I realize it may be better if we take 1 step to the left or 1 step to the right in order to keep on going forward. Sometimes you have to sidestep an obstacle. Sometimes, especially in marriage and in family, even with church, sometimes you have to sidestep an obstacle. Sometimes you have to kind of divert your direction to keep on going the straight direction. Sometimes you have to. Though we live in a very crooked world. And the paths that are set before us may not always be made straight. And sometimes you have to choose the path that's rough and rugged and crooked, and not crooked in path, not in deceitfulness. Sometimes you have to take that path because it's the best thing to do, knowing you're going forward and not going another way. Sometimes it's okay to compromise in principle. Helping someone else grow at the time, but still going back to this I'm still going in this direction, but I'm willing to compromise. I'm willing, instead of taking 5 steps forward, take 2.5 steps forward in order for other people to keep up. Sometimes it's okay to do that. I remember when Abigail was little, and we were going through the mall. She wanted to go to the mall, and I was like, I hate going to the mall, but she wanted to go to the mall and play. So we went to the mall and play, and I'm walking, and I got her by the hand, and I'm walking. My gait was a lot, longer in stride than hers, and my steps were longer in stride than hers at the time, and now she can just run ahead. But I remember she was like kind of behind me, and I realized I was probably walking too fast, and I had to slow down. And now she walks too fast, and she has to slow down for me because I'm not really looking to go to the mall at all. But I remember when Abigail was little, we had to do that. But it's like sometimes you have to compromise in principle. But understand this: it's never okay to compromise on principle. There's a difference between compromising in principle and on principle. If you're a compromiser and you're always giving in, and you're never taking the hardline stance, you're never taking you always take the path of less resistance, you're doing it on principle and not in principle. Taking it on principle is that you're a compromiser at heart, and you're always going to compromise and you won't take a stand on anything. And there's times to take a stand, and there's times not to take a stand. Here's the governor. Here's Pontius Pilate. His responsibility is to execute judgment. And by the way, he wasn't under Moses' law. He wasn't under Mosaic law. He wasn't under the law of God, even as far as with the 10 Commandments of 613 laws, sacrifices. He wasn't part of that. He was a Roman governor. He was of the Roman Empire. They didn't have the same belief system as that everyone else had. They were their own pagan deity. And here he is, of that of authority, and he constantly appeased the people. He constantly appeased the people, even backing down from what he was supposed to believe in, and taking a strong stand on, just to get people to agree with him. Just so you want to have a tumult. Just so you want to have a problem. He was always kind of trying to, appease the people and trying to make things happy for everybody. He was not a compromiser in principle. He was one on principle. His default setting was to be a pacifist. His default setting was to be a compromiser. Let's look at some points here today. There's 4 points I'll look at in regards to compromising character. Number 1, compromise is wrong if it causes you to defy your convictions. If you have something you believe in, and you're held to, and you can compromise it away so easily, that's a reflect of your character. Compromise is wrong if it causes you to defy your convictions. If it changes your convictions. If it causes you to go against your convictions. Look at verses 1 and 2. When the morning was come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. And when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate the governor. This was an illegal act because the Jews had no authority to turn one of their own over to arrest or to seizure. This was a Roman privilege. This is what the law was supposed to do. These are a bunch of religious people doing their religious things. What they thought, they arrested him, which was illegal, and they brought him before the council, which was illegal, and they questioned him, which was illegal. They chose to put him to death, which was illegal, and they turned him over to the Roman governor, and the Roman governor was supposed to issue righteousness and justice, and instead he appeased the people. So you see, first and foremost, if compromise is wrong, if it causes you to defy your convictions, if it causes you to break the law, if it causes you to go against the things that God has told us to do, it's wrong. It's never right. It's wrong. Luke chapter 23. Let's keep our place here. Well, let's go to Luke chapter 23, and let's look at a parallel story here of Jesus's trial and crucifixion. Over here in Luke chapter 23. In verse 1 and 2. And the whole multitude of them arose and led him unto Pilate, and they began to accuse him, saying, We have found this fellow perverting the nation, and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying that he himself is Christ, a king. Did Jesus ever say that? Look at verse number 3. And Pilate said unto him, Art thou the king of the Jews? And he answered and said, Thou sayest it. I didn't say it. You said it. That's not what I'm claiming of myself. This is what you're saying. That's what they've said. This is what they're putting out. So now the compromise is that you're going to crucify, you're going to put to death an innocent man who did nothing of what they're accusing him of. Look at Luke chapter 23, verse 14. Verse 13, excuse me. I'll go back and look at verse number 12. And the same day Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were at enmity between themselves. If the people you make league with are enemies of Christ, why make league with them? Why would you join yourself up to enemies of Christ? Talk about a forfeiture of your convictions. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said unto them, Ye have brought this man unto me as one that perverteth the people, and behold, I have examined him before you, and have no fault in this man touching those things whereof ye accuse him. No, nor yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For of necessity he must release one at the feast. So you see here, he's willing to, he scourges them in some bit of compromise that I'm going to scourge an innocent man. The scourging was enough to kill. History teaches that even the scourging, the cat of nine tails, that alone can kill people. Jesus being scourged with that Roman whip was enough to kill people, and he endured that for us. Go back to Matthew chapter 27. We just read this. It says in verse number 11, and Jesus stood before the governor and the people. Stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, Art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus said unto him, Thou sayest. And when he was accused of the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. Then said Pilate unto him, Hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? You know how hard it is to be accused of something and not respond? You know how hard it is to be accused of something or be gossiped about, to be slandered about, and not go on record? As a lamb before his shears is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. Christ didn't utter one word about the accusations against him. He didn't get up and make a Facebook post. He didn't go make a Twitter post. He didn't make a blog. He didn't make a Snapchat. He didn't make a TikTok. He didn't make a YouTube video. He literally just said nothing. As someone who's been personally attacked and lied against, I have spoken. I have said things out. You know how hard it is to sit back and say nothing and just shut up and not say anything? And yet you see Christ, our prime example, our greatest example, our sole example, being quiet, not saying anything about it. Man. So if we open our mouth and we defend ourselves when we're attacked, when we're spied against, when we're reviled, when we're gossiped about, and we open our mouths, are we being Christ-like? Ouch. All right, moving on. What are you laughing at? That. All right, number 2, compromise is wrong if you must deny your conscience. It's not enough if you defy your convictions, if you purposely have to go against your convictions. What about if compromise is wrong if you must deny your conscience? If you've got to literally take your conscience and leave it outside the door, and you know what they're doing is wrong, and you can go against your conscience, that inner voice, as it were, the Holy Spirit of God even pricking you in your conscience, knowing that what you're doing is wrong, but you can defy it and you can actually deny your conscience. You can turn your conscience off and let something happen. It's like, ever see like a situation ethics? Ever read situation ethics? Here's one. 3 people are in a boat. 1 life raft. The boat is sinking. There's an old person, there's you, and there's a kid. Who gets the life raft? Situation ethics, right? They taught this in school growing up as part of moral conditioning. How about this one? You're out in a deserted island because, you're a deserted island. There's only enough food for 2 people, and there's 3 people there. Who do you kill off? Who do you let starve? It's like literally some of the questions they would ask you to do. I remember one question was asked this. If there's a pharmacy that had the medicine needed for your wife to survive, but they wouldn't sell it to you because you didn't have insurance and you didn't have enough money to buy it, would you rob the pharmacy in order to get the medicine? If you're Bill Gates, no, right? So there's literally these are questions that were asked to make you literally in your mind. It was giving you permission to deny or to defy your conscience, to deny your conscience and to make a choice that was based on hypotheticals, but forcing you to choose in that moment what's right and what's wrong. Well, the Bible tells us the law of God is written upon our hearts. And even if it's just me and you in a deserted island, me and you are going to stand before God one day, and the choices we make, whether it fits social norms or not, we stand before God. And that's what we make all our choices by, that we're going to give an account for the actions and choices we make. So look at Matthew chapter 27, verse 22. Pilate saith unto them, What shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They all say, Let him be crucified. And the governor said, Why? What evil hath he done? He's innocent. I found no fault in him. Why should we crucify him? What has he done wrong? I've examined him. Herod's examined him. We find no fault in him, no fault at all. And they said, Crucify him. Look at verse number 24. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, well, who's in charge? Who's in charge? I love it sometimes. I'll ask my wife, we're driving up the road today, we're saying, Hey, honey, I say, Crystal, what would you like to stop and do for dinner? You want to stop at Walmart and get something from the grocery section? You want to stop and get Taco Bell? What possibly you want to get? All the girls are like, Taco Bell, Taco Bell, Taco Bell, Taco Bell. Stop hanging around Aaron and Sarah so much. They're bad examples. But it's like, Taco Bell, Taco Bell. I'm like, you don't have a choice. I'm talking to Mom. I'm getting her opinion. I'm getting your opinion, Mom. What do you want to do? Taco Bell, Taco Bell. You don't get a choice. This is literally what Pilate's doing. Pilate is literally asking the people what their choice is. They don't have the money. They don't have the vehicle. They're not driving the car. They don't have the money to buy what they want to do. Why would Pilate deny his conscience to listen to angry people that he was responsible for? That's bad ruling. That's bad ruling right there. But it says here, when he saw that he could prevail nothing, but rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See ye to it. Whose responsibility was it to execute criminals? The Roman government. Was it the people's responsibility? No. Crucifixion was a form of Roman torture, or Roman execution. Whose responsibility was to be crucified? Who had the authority to crucify? Only the Roman government. And he gave it to the people. That's not how Rome was built. That's not how Rome was made. The people, the Vax Populi, they didn't have a right. They didn't have. It wasn't a democracy. It was never a democracy. But he gave it to the people. It causes you to deny your conscience. Look at John chapter 18. The same thing is said in John chapter 18. Just said a little bit different. Let's see what John has to say. John 18, come on, fingers. John 18, verses 29 through 30. Pilate then went out unto them and said, What accusation bring ye against this man? They answered and said unto him, If he were not a malefactor, we would have not delivered him up unto thee. Then said Pilate unto them, Take ye him, and judge him according to your law. The Jews therefore said unto him, It is not lawful for us to put any man to death. He even defied the law. He even broke the law and compromised, willing to give them what they want. They said, we can't break this law. We can't break this law. But yet they turned him over for death. And they had no right for that. I love what it says back here in Matthew 27. Going back there, you see even his wife. His wife is really having a hard time with this. Verse number 19. By the way, if you can't trust your wife, who can you trust? The Bible says the virtuous woman in Proverbs 31, it's someone that the husband can trust in. I'm thankful for my wife. I can trust in her. She's not going to make bad decisions, except when it comes to where she wants to eat. And then there's a whole thing about her who she married. There's that part too. Now to think about it, she's got terrible judgment. But in Matthew 27, verse number 19, when he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, Have thou nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. If it causes you to deny your conscience, if it causes you to go against people who have your ear and you trust in, the Bible says you can trust in your wife. You're supposed to be able to trust in her. Trust in her at all times, and not trust is like the same as trusting the Lord. But you ought to be dependent on your wife for sound judgment. You trust the wife to run your household. You got to be able to trust the wife to give you sound direction. Number 3, compromise is wrong if you must defile your character. If you've got to defile your character, if you've got to change who and what you are to appease people, compromise does that. It's wrong if you have to defile your character. Matthew 27, verse number 15. Now at the feast, the governor was wont to release unto the people a prisoner whom they would, and they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said, you're now free to move up again. Pilate said unto him, Whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. So now he's playing into their envy. And he pulls out and says, okay, I can even this Barabbas, who was one of the insurrection. He was a troublemaker. He's a murderer. He's a thief. He's a malefactor. He's an evil blight to society. I can take this evil blight to society. Blight, that's a pretty cool word. I can take the stain on of your civilization. Someone who has caused more problems for you, and that he was causing insurrection. Insurrection of being a rebellion or revolt against the nation. This murderer, this person you had to lock your doors at night because this guy would sneak in your house and kill you. This guy would kill you in broad daylight. I'm going to take this evil, wicked axe murderer, or you can have this person who is called Christ or Messiah, the anointed one. And he played into their envy, saying, which one would you rather have? Do you really want to crucify this Jesus, this Messiah, this one who's healed the lepers, who's made the blind to see, this person who's raised the dead, who's given sight to the blind, who's fed the multitude, who walked on water, who calmed the raging sea, who was born of a virgin, turned water into wine. Do you really want me to take this just person, or would you rather have me crucify this evil, wicked stain that's caused you nothing but heartache and grief? And he plays into their envy. And they said, give us Barabbas and crucify Jesus. Verses 20 through 22, but the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The governor answered and said to them, whether of the twain will you that I release him to you? They said, Barabbas. What shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? Then he says, what evil hath he done? It causes you to defile, to go against your character, to defile your character, and trying to please people as a compromiser. Look at verses 24 through 26 again. And when Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but rather that a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude. Symbolism. It's almost like when DeWine wears a mask in front of the camera. It's symbolism, right? Aaron sent me a video the other day on Instagram. It was hilarious. It's about Michigan, how corrupt it is, and they're all on the camera saying we're all in this together, and then they're going to Florida for a 2-week vacation. They're the first ones in line to get the vaccine, while everyone else is not getting whatever. It's just playing it up, saying how selfish they really are, but saying we're all in it together. It was pretty funny and hilarious, but. Compromise causes us to defile our character. Remember Joseph? Joseph was willing to leave his cloak and keep his character. He left his coat to keep his character. When Potiphar's wife came and was like, hey, Joseph, you big, strong, good-looking man. And tried everything she could with this. Pretty much all I know about flirting. But it's like, hey, come on, Joseph, you guys are a good guy. Come with me. My husband's not home. Come with me. And Joseph was like, I'm not doing this great evil. I'm not going to sin in the sight of God and the sight of my master and my employer. I'm not doing this. And he takes off running. And then she lies about him, and he winds up in prison unjustly. But he was willing to suffer that and keep his character. Remember Daniel? Hey, don't pray to God. It's against the law to pray to God. If you want to have a prayer, bring it before the king. If you got a petition, bring it before the king. But Daniel still prayed to the Lord 3 times a day. And everybody knew that Daniel would still pray to the Lord because it wasn't a habit. It was his character. It was what he did. It was not just a passing glimmer. It was a constant thing that he did. Be careful of the things that you allow to be habits, because one day it'll be your character. Be careful of the things that you let into your life. Be careful of those things, the associations that we join ourselves to. Be careful, because that's what you're going to be known by. The decisions that we make, be careful. Those are things that you're going to be known by. Even a child is known by his doings, whether it be right and pure, and whether it be right. So we got to make sure we got to be living our life by a good character, and don't compromise. If compromise is wrong, if it causes you to go and defile your character. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You have to, every time you hear the music blow, you have to bow down. Hey, your job depends on it. Your life depends on it. Your reputation depends on it. And everybody bows except 3. They're standing all by themselves and they're not bowing. The music playing and they're standing firm. They're not bowing. They would not bow, they would not bend, they would not burn, right? They refused to bend, they refused to bow, they refused to burn. And then the king brings him in and says, hey, I'm going to give you another chance. And he says, I don't care if you give me 500 chance, king. I'm not going to do it. If you can do what you want, but we're not going to do it. He says, well, do you think your God can really save you from the fiery furnace? And he said, king, no offense, sir, but if God doesn't save me from the fiery furnace, we still won't do it. Because our character is different than the consequence. My character is who I am. And I don't care what people want to say or what people want to do, but my character has to stand firm. Compromise is always wrong if it causes you to defy your character. If it goes to defile your character, to put a stain on your character. Oh no, I won't go to oh no. I don't have time to come down off this wall. I'm too busy sealing the wall. I started the work, and 63 days later, we finished work. 53 days, excuse me. I don't have time to come down off this wall. I don't have time to come down to the plane to Ono and have a powwow with you, Sanballat, Tobiah. I don't have time because my character is that I have to do this job and do it right for the glory of God. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. And he says, you know what? I have to do this. I have to serve God. I'm not going to come down. Anytime compromise, we're faced with compromise. We're faced with a decision to compromise and go against our character, or compromise and get along with everybody around us. It is better to stand firm on our character. Last one, character is determined by the courage of your convictions. And that's the point we just made in there as well. But if character is determined by the courage to stand by your convictions. When we're faced with adversity, and we're faced with give up, we're faced with temptation we think is above and beyond our expectancy, something above and beyond our potential, something more than what we can stand on our own 2 feet. We're not sure how we can maintain. We don't know how we can stand. Remember that there's no temptation that's come upon you, that's taken upon you, that is such as common to man. God will make a way of escape. And that temptation that we're faced is to violate our character, to violate our convictions. Psalms chapter 119, verse 105. Maybe you've messed up. Well, how do you cleanse your way? By taking heed thereto to the word of God. Matthew chapter 16, verse 26. For what is a man profited if he should gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then shall reward every man according to his works. It's easy for us to take something we have today, and something that seems more valuable to us today, and forfeit that, rather than having our character being strong in the end. A good name, a good reputation, right? A good name is rather to be chosen than what? Great riches. Our reputation stands on it. What reputation do you want? Do you want to just get along with people for the sake of getting along with people? Hey, pilot, do you really want to just get along with the people that you can just anytime you could squash them? They're under your tribute. They're under your responsibility. They're in servitude to you. They're in bondage to you. Why are you giving in to the ear of the people? Why are you giving in to the ear of the those who are responsible to you? He's afraid to stand up and say, this is how it's going to be. Compromise does that. There's such complications with compromise. That's why we ought not compromise. We've got to stay steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. Let our yeas be yeas and our nays, nays. All right, let's go ahead and pray and ask God's blessing on our prayer list time.